Bienvenidos.
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 Bem-vindos.
Bienvenidos.
Bienvenidos.
Bienvenidos y bienvenidas.
Bienvenidos.
Bem-vindos.
Bienvenidos y bienvenidas.
Bem-vindos.
Anin hamus hakapaichik.
The Pope celebrated Mass in St. Peter's Basilica to commence a General Assembly of Caritas Internationalis. Around 164 Caritas representatives from all over the world have come to Rome. The motto for their meetings is one human family, one common home.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt coming to you once again from the offices of the Remnant newspaper. So, now where have we heard that before? One common home. Oh, that's right. Jeffrey Sachs.
Imagine there's no countries.
We're celebrating together the gift of Laudato Si, Pope Francis's new, passionate, eloquent, wise, compelling encyclical on our common home.
No religion too.
Oh, is that right, Jeffrey Sachs? Your common home is the global village without borders, right? That's what Francis is talking about. He's so in bed now with this whole sustainable development crowd, the New World Order crowd, that really it's no wonder that right-wing populist movements won an unprecedented 57 seats in the elections to the European Union's parliament last week. Oh, did I say populist movements? I meant neo-Nazis and racists, because that's all they are. They're just neo-Nazis and bad haters, xenophobes. That's all they are. I actually get a kind of a kick out of that. I mean, if that's all the media and the left-wing folks can do is say, you're a racist, when these guys are saying, well, we just want to have our country. We just like to have law and order, reestablished inside of terrible people, racist. Anyway, we'll get into that in a moment. But what's happening here with these populist movements is this is something that traditional Catholics really need to take a look at. Now, I know some of you are going to jump and say, well, they're not Kingship of Christ guys. They're not traditional Latin Mass people. They may have a child out of wedlock here and there. So therefore, we, the purists, we disqualify all of them. And I'm sort of flummoxed by that, because traditional Catholics of all people, I mean, for 50 years we've been saying that the Catholic Church has dropped the ball. That Catholic priests no longer talk about mortal sin from the pulpit. They don't stress, confession, all of it. So why on earth would we be surprised when certain, politicians in Europe are not exactly daily communicants? They know something's wrong. They know that there's this, they sense this sort of rise of this very anti-Christian New World Order thing, and they're trying to do something about it. So traditional Catholics of all people should be looking at this movement, this populist movement, and saying, you know what, there's some things there we can work with. They're coming in the right direction. Yeah, they need the Kingship of Christ. Yes, they need the restoration of the Catholic Church. But their instincts are right. Their instincts are Catholic. And right there in the Pope's own backyard now, you have this Matteo Salvini, who we'll get into in a moment, but he reminds me of like a William Wallace of Italy or something, a Braveheart. And now his Lega party got a whopping 30%. This sent a clear message, not only to Brussels, but to Pope Francis. That the sellout, the Vatican's sellout to the New World Order is scaring the literal hell out of the Italian people. And more than just scaring them, it's ticking them off. They're angry. They're tired of it. And as well they should be. And anyone who's ever traveled in Italy, you're not really surprised by this. You scratch the surface just a little bit of the Italian people, society, and the Catholicism is right there. It's in the roots of that country, of course. The churches are still standing. The people want something to believe in. It's only because of Vatican II and the whole mess over there that so many of them have fallen away. It's not going to take that much to get them back. And I think the populist movement is proving that. People, they do want more. They do want identity. They do want Christianity. They want their countries back. That's not racism. That's called survival. That's called wanting something to believe in. And this Salvini guy, I find him very interesting. He's described in a new article on remnantnewspaper.com by our remnant columnist in Italy, my good friend Hilary White. She describes him as the man the Bergoglian and Italian bishops most love to hate. It's a fascinating new article, by the way, on the site right now, so please check that out. Italian journalist Antonio Socci, he tweeted that the elections now, these recent elections, have a certain winner, which is obviously Matteo Salvini, who has been bitterly opposed, according to Socci, by the Italian Bishops' Conference. So the Catholic people of Italy now, according to Socci, the Catholic people have rejected Pope Bergoglio and the Italian bishops by this populist vote. Again, plenty of reason for traditional Catholics to sit up and pay attention. Something interesting is happening here. And the difference now between us, our movement, and this populist movement is that they do have some political clout. They do have some power to do something. They have sort of a political strategy that's beginning to work, that's got Brussels nervous, that's got the Vatican nervous. And what do they need? They need the kingship of Christ. They need the traditional Catholic sort of injection, and we need to restore the church as well as have these populist movements. And the world could change. Europe could change tomorrow if this begins to really take root. And there's reason to think that maybe it is. Because there are similar political parties now, populist parties, springing up all over the place. So you have it happening in Spain. You have it in Hungary, in spades. We're going to be going to Hungary in a few weeks, 2 weeks. And I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out, what it's like in Hungary now as you have sanity being restored in Hungary. Again, racism being obviously institutionalized in Hungary if you're watching CNN. But for the rest of us, we're seeing sanity being restored in these countries, Hungary, Poland, Austria, even the Brexit party in the UK. Farage, what's his first name? Nigel Farage. I get a kick out of this guy. Again, he's not a Kingship of Christ guy, not yet anyway, but he senses instinctively that something is really wrong with the EU. He's trying to do something about it. This is interesting for us as traditional Catholics, especially, again, since the only answer so far that these guys at the far left in politics and in media, the only answer so far is that they're a bunch of racists. And I really think most people are seeing through that by now. I mean, this racism charge, it's just an insult hurled by unimaginative people that don't have an argument. And that's fairly apparent to most people. It's not a real argument. It's the ultimate ad hominem. You know, you're a racist because you don't agree with it. You either go along with the open borders insanity or you're a racist. It's just so silly. It's so stupid. And I think most people now are really not too bothered by it. And I think we as traditional Catholics shouldn't be either. We shouldn't be cowed by this or intimidated by this. Well, if you say anything nice about the populist movement, you probably are a Nazi or come on. Stop it. Pope Francis now, and this is where it gets kind of scary, though, when it comes to this, rather than trying to bring people together, the Pope also now is saying that people who are interested in preserving their own culture and protecting their own borders, he says they're racist and they're probably anti-Semitic. This is absolutely irresponsible on his part.
Chiesa ha ammonito le persone, I popoli e I governi riguardo alle deviazioni di questo attaccamento quando verte in esclusione e odio altrui, quando diventa nazionalismo conflittuale che alza muri, anzi addirittura razzismo o antisemitismo.
Pope Francis invited countries to collaborate with one another. He encouraged them not to see immigrants as a threat, but instead welcome, protect, promote, and integrate them into society.
In France, by the way, Holiness, those same immigrants took over Terminal 2 at Charles de Gaulle International Airport the other night and literally grounded airplanes by refusing to leave until they got free citizenship cards from the government of France. What's going on here? The French are literally losing their country. And to a large extent, it's their own fault. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, they declared war on Christ the King. They thought they could be liberated and equal and fraternal and all that stuff. Well, I don't think they realized that what that meant. You get rid of Christ from Catholic France, and you are going to end up with no France at all. And that's what's happening. They're literally losing their country. Thus, President Macron's embarrassing loss then to Marine Le Pen, the national movement there in France on Sunday. Even people who are just concerned about the mayhem and the rioting in the streets and the burning churches and everything else, that's enough for a lot of people to say, yes, something has to give here. We need to stop. the policies of this nascent New World Order called the European Union, which is destroying these countries in Europe. And it's not just in Europe. It's the same now in the Philippines, a country that's dominated by Planned Parenthood, the population controllers, the sustainable development, all the usual suspects, the secularists. And all of a sudden, the Philippines Congress passed a bill declaring September 8th, the Feast of the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, a national holiday in the Philippines. And by the way, it's not just sort of, the Virgin Mary or something. It's specifically Our Lady of Fatima. Moving on down then, South America, you have Brazil, same thing going on. Last Tuesday, Brazil was consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. I can't even believe that we're able to report on some of this stuff. Just when you thought, and we've been saying this for a long time, you think it's over and it's gone, never count God out, never count the Blessed Mother out. This is what we've been waiting for, and it's beginning to happen. It's not perfect, it's not all the way there, but it's beginning to happen. Brazil consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary? This is extremely significant. Take a look at some of this.
Senhoras e senhores, o presidente da República, Jair Bolsonaro, acompanhado do ministro-chefe da Secretaria-Geral da Presidência da República, Floriano Peixoto Vieira Neto, do deputado federal Eros Biondini, de Dom Terra, bispo emérito de Brasília, de Dom Fernando Rifan, bispo da Administração Apostólica São João Maria Vianney.
Iniciemos este ato em nome do Pai, do Filho, do Espírito Santo. Amém. Salve, Senhora. Queremos te colocar em primeiro lugar agora aqui nos nossos corações e no Brasil. Ave Maria, cheia de graça, o Senhor é convosco. Bendita sois vós entre as mulheres, e bendito é o fruto do vosso ventre, Jesus. Santa Maria, Mãe de Deus, rogai por nós, pecadores, agora e na hora de nossa morte. Amém. Podem assentar, obrigado. Que tenha a honra da vitória final, a última grande e espetacular vitória que nos dará os novos céus e a nova terra. O triunfo do Imaculado Coração de Maria, que é a vitória de Jesus Cristo para o mundo novo. E viva Nossa Senhora Rainha do Brasil!
And by the way, do you recognize that bishop? Well, that bishop is the successor of the late, great Bishop Antonio de Castro-Mayor, the only bishop in the world to publicly stand with Archbishop Lefebvre in 1988. And his diocese then, down in Campos, in Brazil, was the only diocese in the world that diocese-wide refused to offer the new Mass. And now here's Bishop Rifan, the successor of Castro-Mayor, who still heads up a now regularized but nevertheless traditionalist society, which offers only the traditional Latin Mass. He's a traditionalist. And there he is, down in Brazil with the politicians, with the president, consecrating Brazil to the Blessed Mother of God. It's incredible. And again, the statue that we see in the video is a statue, not just some generic, Virgin Mary, but again, Our Lady of Fatima, who back in 2017, by the way, found her way into the Trump White House after a Maronite priest was called in to exorcise the White House, which is a story in and of itself, which we should probably look into. Why did Trump want to have the White House exorcised from demonic spirits when he got in? Very interesting. But anyway, he called the priest to come in and do that. The priest brought a statue of Our Lady of Fatima, and Trump, the president of the United States, asked if he could keep that statue of Our Lady of Fatima. So right now, there's a statue of Our Lady of Fatima at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. People say, it's just Trump. It's just a political stunt. Really? Since when is a statue of Our Lady of Fatima in the hands of the president, of the leader of the free world? Since when is that a political opportunity? So again, going back into Italy, when Italy's deputy premier, this Matteo Salvini, when he dedicated his country to the Immaculate Heart of Mary at a rally attended by tens of thousands of people, and he says, quote, "I entrust Italy, my life, and your lives to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, who I'm sure will bring us to victory."
E io personalmente affido l'Italia, la mia e la vostra vita, al cuore immacolato di Maria, che son sicuro ci porterà alla vittoria.
Friends, there's no way that we can look at something like this and say, it's just politics. It doesn't mean anything. This is a baptized Catholic saying this in front of the whole world. But he wasn't done. He goes on to say, quote, "We entrust ourselves to the 6 patrons of Europe, to Saint Benedict of Norcia, to Saint Bridget of Sweden, to Saint Catherine of Siena, to Saint Cyril and Methodius, to Saint Teresa Benedetta of the Cross. We rely on them, and we entrust to them the destiny, the future, the peace, and the prosperity of our peoples." Now, when's the last time you heard Pope Francis say anything even remotely like that? You see why they don't like this man at the Vatican? Because he's more Catholic than the Pope, evidently. Now, again, this man, Salvini, he's not a saint, but he's a baptized Catholic who knows instinctively that contrary to all the propaganda of the globalists and the secularists who now dominate Europe, he knows that the people, they are missing something. They want something back. Yes, they want their countries, but they also want their God back. They want Christianity. They want devotion to the Blessed Mother again. They want their Christian identity back. And so even if it is just politics, that's great news that people are beginning to win political elections in countries of former Christendom by appealing to Christian roots, by appealing to the Mother of God. Even if it's a political stunt, it means the people it's resonating with the people. They're responding to it. Don't you see? It's not all lost. It's not all hopeless. The faith is not gone from Europe. It's been camouflaged, covered up, and buried by the Second Vatican Council and the revolutionaries, the modernists in the church, but it's still there in the people. And this election, this populist election now, proves it in Italy. Of course Salvini's no saint, but neither was Constantine when God used him to bring about the fall of the mighty Roman Empire. Remember? He wasn't a saint. Neither was Cyrus the Great of Persia, the pagan whom God used to free his peoples from Babylonian captivity. The pagan. Neither was Francois de Charette de la Contrie in France, the great leader of the uprising in the Vendée. You know what? That man had some concubines early on in his life. He was an extremely lukewarm Catholic. He fought on the side of the Americans in the Revolutionary War, didn't quite get the whole Enlightenment thing at first. And when Catholic peasants, French peasants in the Vendée, when they pressed him, he was hiding under his bed. He wanted nothing to do with the Catholic counter-revolution. But they pressed him. And finally, his Catholic instincts won out. And he stood up to the challenge. And he led the royal and Catholic army in France against the revolution in Paris. He answered the call. And he would eventually go on to die a martyr's death, a hero for Catholic France, for the altar and throne of the Catholic Church. So similarly now, some of these men, such as Salvini, they're broken, broken vessels, yeah. But nevertheless, they're kicking against the same Antichrist that was dominating in Paris in 1789. And yet what happens with our Pope, our vaunted Pope at this moment, when you finally have a politician, a political movement in Catholic Europe, formerly Catholic Europe, finally, they're calling on the Mother of God. They're holding up the rosary. They're showing the world what the answer is. And what does Pope Francis do? He refuses to meet with these men. He refused to meet with Salvini. He'll meet with almost anybody, Francis will. He met with rock star Bono, absolutely, no problem. Italy's famed abortion advocate, Bonino, oh, sure, absolutely. Pro-abort Vice President Joe Biden, you bet, Francis met with him. But a Catholic politician who's now entrusted Italy to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and Francis's response is, quote, "Until his language and politics change, I can't and I don't want to shake Salvini's hand." Why? Because Salvini is hated by the Marxists in Europe. And guess what? Breitbart News got it right the other night when they said, quote, "Marxists really have infiltrated the church hierarchy all the way to the very top." And so where do we stand as traditional Catholics in all of this? Because we're the first to admit the populist movement in and of itself isn't enough. We're not saying it ends there. So what do we do? How can we be constructive? How can we be part of the solution here rather than part of the problem? We don't want to pile on like Francis is doing. Well, the populist movement doesn't live up to our standards, so to hell with them. Our mission should be crystal clear now. We have an opportunity like we've never had before, politically speaking. It's time for traditional Catholics to ramp up the traditional Catholic rallying cry in favor of Christ the King. It's time for traditional Catholics to let the whole world know that faithful, practicing Catholics who go to Mass every Sunday no longer accept the Vatican of Pope Francis as a moral authority over anything. They have engaged in a global cover-up for pedophiles and child abusers. They're immersed now in scandal, and they're in no position whatsoever to come out and condemn the populist movement. That whatever their flaws are, this populist movement, they have had enough of the New World Order, and the Vatican shall not, will not, must not be allowed to stand in their way as the moral authority, accusing them of racism and horrible, ugly things that are in no sense true or accurate. Because this is it, friends. Because the Freemasons and the globalists and whatever you want to call them now, the New World Orders, they've uncrowned Christ. And a long time ago, their forefathers beheaded the kings and queens of Christendom. And now they're trying to create a global concentration camp out of Catholic Europe. And somebody's going to stop them. And these movements are trying to do just that. Traditional Catholics cannot sit this out. We need to bring the standard of Christ the King into the populist movements in Europe, South America, wherever they happen, even here in America, to help to undermine the anti-Christian movement. Again, populism is not enough. The people must crown Christ again too. But we need to start somewhere. And that's where traditional Catholics need to come in, need to wisen up, need to adopt a strategy that's going to help this movement. Don't be bullied by the media, desperate now to paint us all as racist, to paint everybody who's got a problem with what's going on as racist. Don't be intimidated by that. That's just the last recourse of atheist politicians who are losing control of the situation. Because again, Europe is Catholic. Christ is in the foundations of the nations of Europe. Christ is in the bones of the people, of the European people, even still, even today. Which is why the secularists spend every waking moment trying to prevent the resurrection of Christ in Europe. And why do they do that? Because they have long memories. And because they know the church has always come back. Christ will always rise again. Because he will rise again. And the demons in the European Union and the United Nations, really, way down deep inside, they're afraid he's going to do it again. They know Christianity is going to come back. So what do? We pray the rosary every night for our European brothers and sisters especially. We beg them. We pray for them. Stand your Catholic ground. Don't back down. And traditional Catholics will do whatever we possibly can to, again, bring that standard of Christ the King into the movement to complete the picture and to begin real Catholic counter-revolution, which is the one thing the globalists absolutely cannot stand and have no answer for. So the message tonight from America to the populist movements in Europe: long live Christ the King. Well played, brothers. Keep it up. I'm Michael Matt, Remnant TV. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
E io personalmente affido l'Italia, la mia e la vostra vita, al cuore immacolato di Maria, che son sicuro ci porterà alla vittoria.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching our video today. If you'd like more from Remnant TV, please subscribe to the Remnant print edition newspaper. Or you can become an e-subscriber, you can read it on your phone. We want to bring these videos to you at least once a week, and a great way to make sure that happens is to subscribe to the Remnant newspaper. Thanks very much, we'll see you next time.